the biggest threat is to our economy, to the welfare system.
Yeah.
And since the people who come here don't work as much as the Swedes do, they don't contribute to the system.
Yeah.
But then they take out as much as the Swedes. So a family who comes here from a country, let's say in Africa, where the father is not educated, he can't read or write, he will be part of the unemployed workforce,
Yeah.
but he will get all the benefits as a Swede, even though he hasn't contributed. And that's what they call a general welfare policy.
Yes.
Whereas in other countries you have a qualification process, which means that you can only use the social benefit if you have worked or contributed to the welfare system. So that's the biggest threat. The second threat is culturally and socially.
Good. Yes.
And that's because the groups who come here are quite different to the Swedish population. And even though we're very tolerant, we are still what I would call North European Protestant culture, which has been homogeneous for millennia. And that means that when you have a large part of the population, I think about 70% is Muslim, and rural Muslims, they're not living in cities in the way that
Have been westernized.
Yes, I mean, I have experience from India, for instance, and if you look at people who live in Delhi, whether they're Muslims or Hindus, it doesn't matter, because they are cosmopolitan, and they are in the way westernized.
Yes.
But if you are a rural Muslim, let's say from India or Pakistan or Somalia, that means there are two barriers. One is the religious, and second is the level of education, level of civilization. And so it looks like we are going backwards, sliding into a state where Sweden was 150 years ago.
Even if economically it was viable to have these immigrants that you have just described, you would still disagree on the cultural level.
Well, before we do that, we must take into consideration whether they have the right to asylum, because the majority of the people do not have the right of asylum. They don't fulfill the UN Geneva Convention.
Yeah.
They don't fulfill not even what you call the refugees of war.
Yeah.
Most of the people, Syrians who come here, have been in Turkey before, even though it's very bad in Turkey and in Greece too, but let's say Turkey, because that's outside the European Union, they still are alive and they have a tent and they have some kind of food and shelter. Now they come to Europe for economic benefits and to have a better life, but that's not a part of the refugee reasons you can apply for.
Yeah.
So just basically, before we get into culture, we should talk about economy and the legal system.
Yes.
And these people don't qualify for any of those.
Yeah.
So culture, that's the third. That's a little bit softer to discuss, but that's still important. I think that among the Nordic countries, Denmark is the only country, and Finland, of course. Denmark and Finland have started talking about the Islamization and the culture that are coming to their country, whereas Sweden and Norway are more politically correct.
They are afraid of talking about this openly.
But the immigrants who come from Christian Middle East, the Christians from Iraq and
Assyrians
and Armenians and Norway, they of course know everything about this that we don't want to know, about the repressions of Christians in the Middle East.
And do you find that these kind of, especially the Christian ones, are more, they assimilate better and they respect the culture? I'm asking.
Yes,
I'm not saying.
They do, but then there are problems. If you look at the city of Södertälje, for instance, we had a large problem there with the Syrian Orthodox population.
Yeah.
Because they were using benefits from the social benefit system in a ways that were, I would say, illegal.
Yes.
Now there is a court process. So yes, generally they work harder and they have their own business, but it's not an easy assimilation of them either.
Which serves as a proof that even if there are similarities, immigration into another culture should be, it's not an easy thing.
No. And then you have people who come from there are Syrian Christians or Syrian Orthodox. the Swedes are very secularized. So even though they have a Christian heritage, the Swedes don't feel that that means so much. Because the Swedes don't go to church, they don't pray, they don't feel themselves as Christians. Although culturally they are Christians.
Yes. Because what's happening now with the refugee crisis, there's a European Union element into this. What do you think about the European Union? In terms of both only on immigration matters, but also in general, this structure that we call European Union. Do you think it has helped the European nations and the nation states of Europe or not?
Well, the European Union turned out to be, I believed in it even though I didn't vote for it, but I believed it for a long time. Now I'm more skeptic, I'm more of the UKIP kind, Front National and the Swedish Democrats position, but I like the idea of European civilization, European culture, and I think that the European Union has contributed so the people of Northern Europe feel that they are part of Europe in a more qualified sense than they did when I grew up in the 70s. But it seems like the European Union turned out to be a political project from France, and the Germans should pay. If you look at what Jacques Delors, the French EU commissioner in the 80s, he said that in 1989, if we want to have a unified Germany, East and Western Germany, then Germany had to pay up for the French to condone it, to like it. So the strange thing has happened. There's a French political project that the Germans pay for, and that's when the euro currency came into process to be realized in the early 90s, and that was actually that the rest of Europe benefit from the German Deutsche Mark, and it's also another way of saying that just because of the Hitler-Nazi Germany in the 30s and 40s, Germany should pay again. So now I find, and this goes back also to the refugee crisis, when the German takes in 800,000 fleeing refugees, and that the Germans have to pay. First, they have to pay for the euro currency, the Deutsche Mark. So everyone, in Greece for instance, got to a very high level because there was the same currency in Germany as in Greece, although the Greeks didn't have much industrial production to support it.
It was destroyed by the socialists in the 80s.
Yeah, that's another question. But the Germans paid for your cheap loans from 2000 to 2010. So the Germans paid that, and now the Germans are paying again in taking a lot of refugees and saying to Hungary that we take all the people who say they come from Syria. So I find now that the European Union is I agree with everything Farage says, but it's also with the refugee crisis, you are also trying to revive the old ideas of the European Union, which was to make not another war in Europe, because we had 2 world wars, and Germany was a part of the first and a part of the second. But it seems like the Germans have to pay and pay and pay, and if you were born 1985, if you were a German boy or man in 30, you would still feel that your grandfather was maybe a Nazi or maybe not a Nazi, but didn't protest enough, so you have to pay. And I find this is a hopeless way to continue the European Union building on the German guilt. And the guilt should also be there with France, because but that people don't talk about the First World War, when it was the French, not the Brits and the Americans, that wanted to have such a big payback guilt from Germany, pay back to the victorious forces of the First World War. But that was France that insisted on it, which broke the German economy in the 1920s.
There is a cultural element and a civilizational element in the European Union project. Isn't that, do you think that is a danger for the nation states as well?
Yeah, but I said I like the idea of a unified Europe in a cultural sense, but not in a federal sense. The whole idea of Europe was that we were a mixed continent.
Yes.
In that sense, I think Europe is more like India, which I know fairly well. I lived in India. India is not not one country. It's a continent, just like the European Union. And the languages of southern India are not related to the languages of northern India or eastern India. And so I think that Europe should be more like, in that sense, India, which in India you have 24 national languages, you have 9 scripts, alphabets. So in that sense, India is a loose federation of nation states who are allowed to be themselves.
Yeah, but you think that the nation states of Europe as a state, in the Westphalian sense, should retain their powers?
Oh, yeah.
To be able to, amongst their borders, to do their own, to decide whatever they want in terms of...
Yes, of course. But what we need to do, this is paradoxical, because what we need to do is to understand the roots of European civilization, the Peace of Westphalia, or the Charles the Great, or Athens and Rome, and to revive our pride in European civilization. But that doesn't mean that we are all Europeans in a weak sense. So that means that there are North Europeans, the Norsemen, the Vikings, the Swedes, who built on a certain rural democratic tradition.
Yes.
I write in my book.
Yes.
So that's
some of the most ancient democracies. If you go back to every European nation, they have some form of archaic democracy.
Yes.
Collective kind of. We don't. In Europe, we never had despotic systems like in the East.
No.
In the sense that
yes and no. Well, we had some.
We had kings.
Yeah.
But it wasn't despotic.
Catholic Spain, Inquisition wasn't very nice, but I generally no. Europe has been pluralistic.
Yes.
And that's our weakness, but also our strength. And what has happened now is that we have a sort of an elitist Europe that wants to unify Europe in a very bland, a very cosmopolitan, weak West European sense that doesn't appreciate the national characteristics. So in that sense, I think that what's happening now is finally that the European Union breaks because of refugee crisis and because of the euro crisis.
Economic.
So in that sense, we should thank the Greeks for being the falling apart of the European Union, because it showed to everyone that this euro currency didn't work.
So from what you say, I understand that the European Union, as a project of unifying the nation states, has failed. Maybe we are supporting European unity in the sense that European civilization, understanding the differences between the north, the south, the east, the west of Europe, but the unity in the sense that we have this backdrop, the Greeks, the Romans, the Norsemen, the Celts. So is it in that sense?
Yes. There is also the parallel organization in Swedish, I think it's called EFTA. I don't know what it's called in English, but you have the European Union, and then you have Norway, Iceland, and Switzerland. It's called EEA.
Well, Switzerland, it's not in the EEA, the European Economic Area. Norway
EES, it's called.
Maybe in Swedish,
or EFTA. That's when Iceland and Norway, and I think Switzerland is a part of that. And that's just a free trade agreement.
Yes.
And there's nothing about building a European heritage and culture.
Norway, Iceland, and Switzerland are the only examples, in my opinion, in Europe that still show that. I think they are the most European nations because they are out of the European Union, in the sense that they have retained their culture, they have retained their national sovereignty, and the two most important things of being an independent state, they've got their own currencies, which are doing well while the great euro is being destroyed, and they have their own armed forces. They've got armed forces. See, especially Norway and Switzerland. In Cyprus, because we've got the problem with Turkey, we have irresponsible people who talk about destroying the army and all these ideas, these flowery ideas, while half of our country is occupied. But then you look at Norway and Switzerland, and they've got robust armies. So what do you think? We have moved from the immigrants to the European Union, and now we move to Turkey because it's linked with both, in the sense that we as Greeks, both in Cyprus and Greece, we know very well that these so-called refugees are being smuggled in by Turkey. They go through Turkey.
Yes.
Why no one talks about Turkey? Turkey is the human smuggling nation. That's where they come initially, and then it's all the other things about Turkey. So what do you think about that? Should Turkey be part of the European Union?
No. It shouldn't be part of the European Union. It's not European to begin with. And secondly, it has shown very recently in the last year or two that it has despotic tendencies, that they don't treat the minorities well. And it's just behind the democracy there is a what you call the deep state, which is actually the
Deep state,
or dictatorial military forces. So no, of course Turkey should not. But Turkey is still. I think Turkey is interesting because it has enough power to balance Saudi Arabia and Iran. Because
secular, of course.
Yes, but so Turkey plays a geopolitical role and is a part of the NATO, which means that it plays a role to balance the two. Otherwise, the Middle East would be it is a mess now, but it would be even more a mess if you didn't have Turkey there to balance up Saudi Arabia and Iran. And even though there are links between Saudi and Turkey, I don't think that they are. I mean, they're both Sunni, but they are so different that I don't think they can make one block. So, and I find Turkey interesting because I'm interested in the Byzantine civilization. I have no problem with Turks and Turkish culture, and I like Turkey in a way that makes me happy when I'm there. I see people are well fed, and I was there in Istanbul 2 years ago. And it's very clean streets and buses go regularly on time. And I came from India where everything is falling apart in a way, and then I came to civilization, which was Turkey.
And there is a professor in Greece. He died a few years ago. He was a sociologist, and he was Greek from Turkey, from Constantinople, and he fled after the pogroms. His family fled, and they left. And he was also involved when he was younger in Kemalist politics and so on. And because you mentioned your experience in Constantinople, sorry, we don't call it Istanbul. We can't say Istanbul. He said that that's the difference between rural Turks and the urban Turks. The urban Turks, especially in the West, are very European in the sense that the ones that are in Anatolia and so on, those are very different culturally. But what about the way Turkey treats its neighbors, its European neighbors as well, like Cyprus?
Well, I know the regular story, which you know much more detail than I do, that it's an illegal occupation and no one has recognized what's called the Turkish part of Cyprus. So that I can just endorse what you think. I have no qualified ideas about Cyprus. And you see, I like the Mediterranean cultures, and I think that Cyprus is a part of that, and that's what I like about Turkey. When Turkey is peaceful and democratic, or at least not repressive, it's a part of Mediterranean culture. You find in Greece, you find in Italy, you find in Spain, and France, and I know the rest. And that Mediterranean culture supersedes, I think, the local culture, because to be Mediterranean is to be part of European culture or the Western civilization, and this part, I mean, parts of Turkey was Greek before, so I would call it Western too. Yeah, and so I like Turkey because it's the Mediterranean culture. But then you say what about the central part? And I've been to Ankara, so I spent a week there, and it is quite different. I was in 1984 when I applied for visa going to Iran. When I went to Iran in 1984, it wasn't very safe there because it was a war with Iraq. But I went as a tourist to Iran.
Wow. So, but while you like the Mediterranean aspects of Turkey, you still disagree about joining the European Union?
Yeah, because it has all that heritage, which the rural, the Anatolian, but it is an Islamic republic. It's not stable. It's not democratic. It doesn't treat it all those things. But I mean, if you go to the coastal towns, the tourist resorts, are just seeing the Mediterranean culture. You wouldn't see much difference going to Greece or Italy and to Turkish fishing village, for instance.
Yeah.
Because they used to trade, they used to the sea, they have an easygoing lifestyle.
Yeah. And does the history of Turkey with European nations and that where Turkey has interacted with the Ottomans from the coming of the Mongols and the Huns and the Turanic people in Europe, is it something that Europe should be worried about? Because they've had wars with all European nations, not just Greece. I'm not talking as a Greek, but the problems, the kind of worries we have as Greeks are shared by the Bulgarians, by the Romanians, by the Moldavians, Austrians, Poles, Serbians. All of them, Ukrainians, even Russians, even, and of course on the other side, Armenians, Syrians, Georgians,
Europeans and North Europeans especially don't understand this kind of discussions around the Ottoman Empire, because they don't even remember that there was an Ottoman Empire. You could do it from Serbia or Greece, you know.
It's true. I am glad you understand.
Yes. So I know the sort of Vienna siege, 1683 and then 1699.
And the Polish fire spot as well.
Yeah. So, but the North European, we've been sort of so off in the periphery, so we haven't having any living memory of that.
You haven't experienced what Ottomanism means.
No. So, especially up here in Sweden, we are very naive, very benevolent towards everything. That if we feel that the Turks are suppressed because they're Muslims, we feel solidaric with them, have empathy with them, which means that in that sense we are against the nationalist Greeks or national Cypriots, because they are opposing Turkey, and Turkey is the victim because they're Muslim, and that's a very strange and ahistorical, very rational. But Swedes don't know and can't distinguish who's the victim and who's the perpetrator in this kind of history or these battles. So being a North European and up in Scandinavia is to be off from a sort of main continental European current. And even I think Scotland and Ireland and Britain is also a bit off now. So these kind of continental wars and Ottoman Empire going into Europe, we don't feel we understand it or have any level of memory of it.
It's very interesting that you say that, because that's exactly what we have been discussing, in the sense that we understand the motives and the empathy that Swedes and Scandinavians and even other North Europeans and Western Europeans feel towards Turkey, but then we know that you have not been their neighbors to see, experience that kind of thing. Like everyone in Cyprus people have been refugees, have been forced out of their houses on gunpoint. we have Armenians who have fled the genocide, and they are part of the Cypriot population. They have been attacked again by the Turks, even though they have not even been Greeks in the 50s. So yeah, we understand that you don't know this history, but
the Swedes have a romantic picture of Turkey. We had a king called the 12th,
yes.
and he lost in Ukraine in 1709, I think. And then he moved to to Istanbul and stayed in Turkey for 5 years. And they were very hostile to him, the Swedish king. And when he came back, he brought a dish called kåldolmar in Swedish, which is cabbage köfte. You know köfte, which is meatball.
We have it in Greek as well.
Yes,
Yeah,
köfte.
but it's a meatball and then you have cabbage around it. And that was the dish that this king and his entourage brought from Turkey. So in that sense, the Swedish memory of anything Turkish is that, this kind of köfte cabbage, meatball cabbage, is very tasty, and now it's become a Swedish dish. It's called kåldolmar. Dolmades. So the Swedes think that this is a cultural exchange. We went there and we brought back their nice food, and they don't remember anything about the Ottoman Empire. They don't know anything about the fall of Constantinople. They don't know anything about the persecution of Christians.
Genocide.
They don't know about
Genocide.
the piles of skulls of the Armenians and the Turks just posing in front of them like this. Fortunately.
Yeah.
You know, when we say these things, people think we are crazy and extreme as great. But these are just the facts. I mean, we don't even express opinions here. These are just the facts. Okay.
But a good thing about being Greek is that you can be patriotic and left.
Yes.
In Sweden, we have the idea that to be patriotic is a right-wing position.
No.
But I'm just saying.
Okay, yeah, as a Swede,
So-
Swede, yeah.
Because you fought against the Nazis,
Nazis.
and you have to call the Greek partisans, and then you have the people who fought against the junta, and they were also sometimes called patriots or
Yes.
partisans, and they were left-wing. So in Sweden, we don't understand that there is a left or center nationalism. It's not just a right nationalism, because in Sweden to be nationalist is to be right-wing. But if you look at the people who defended Italy against Mussolini and Hitler, who defended Greece against the same forces, they were usually left-wing. And of course the French resistance was left-wing. So you have a left nationalist and in Spain also. So the left nationalism is something that the Swedes should be proud of. But they don't. We had a kind of left nationalism in the 30s and the 40s ourselves, but that was peaceful because the Social Democratic Party was strong enough to mobilize a nationalist that was left or social democratic, and they brought up the idea of something called the folkhem, the people's home. And that's a myth about when the Swedes could take care of each other. But that was a social democratic utopia for a certain country called Sweden. But if I would talk now about nationalist utopia, I would be considered right-wing.
Well, just to inform you, it's interesting you look at it this way, that especially in Cyprus, maybe you wouldn't know that one of the most nationalist parties for decades has been the Socialist Party. Has been the most nationalist party, which promoted from the 60s onwards a kind of third position of the time, non-aligned movement kind of nationalism, similar to the Arab socialism, Cuba kind of nationalism, Yugoslavia,
India.
But the leader of the party was a very good friend of Olof Palme as well, Olof Palme.
Papandreou.
And Papandreou in Greece. But the last 10-20 years, every kind of attempt to create a sort of left nationalism is being fought very fiercely by Marxists. in the sense that they accuse everyone of being a Nazi, even if they're left wing. If you dare have a Greek flag or speak about the nation, even in mild form, I'm not even saying political nationalism, I'm even saying about the sentiment of patriotism.
Same thing here.
Yeah, and in Greece, especially in Greece, there is a kind of parastate of the Marxists and the anarchists, in the sense that they also do terrorism. They burn offices, they burn Greek flags in demonstrations, they beat people up, they shoot people, they burn buildings. So you don't have these things here yet. And I really hope you don't get.
But see, I find some of the immigrants in Sweden are more patriotic than the Swedes. If you're born here, or even you moved here, and you have a good life here, you have a work, and you're very proud of being part of the Swedish country.
You're grateful as well.
Yeah. So I find the immigrants are more nationalistic than Swedes, and they're more thankful to this country. And this book is about a Swedish nationalist that she's not Swedish even. She's just born here, but she's she's lived in India. So I put my hopes, and also in this other book, to the immigrants of Sweden, that the immigrants are the only one who can save Sweden, and save Sweden from the Swedes, because the Swedes are unpatriotic. So I think that Swedes need immigrants to tell them that this is a good country, and it's not racist, it's not xenophobic, it's all these things are just crap. You can't even mention how nice this country is. To tell it's a racist country is very, very strange. But the Swedes don't believe it when they tell themselves this. But if immigrants could tell the Swedes that this is a very decent country, you should be proud of it. I'm a member here. Let's say unless my father came here from one generation ago, I was born here. I work and live here. I'm happy. My father may come from Middle East or Africa. Then I'm a proud Swede. But even the Swedes don't understand how nice this country is and are proud of it.
I agree. And I have experienced that when I was in Norway as well. One of the most patriotic people I've met was a family from Kurdistan who were amazing. They were Kurdish patriots and Norwegian patriots as well at the same time. I would say Greek patriots as well in that sense. What you say, I think the Scottish National Party has done this very successfully. The first immigrant who was elected in the local parliament, is Muslim Pakistani. I forget his name. He was elected with the Nationalists, believe it or not with the Labour Party or anything. And he said, he was saying to his community, he said, if we just cry about how bad things are, we are not going to get any support. We should say how glad we are to be in this country and what we also contribute in this country. And because of him, most minorities in Scotland vote for the Nationalists, which is a very interesting thing.
I think UKIP has a member in European Parliament in Brussels who is a Sikh, an Indian Sikh, with the turban. And, so it's a very paradoxical situation to find myself in a country where I belong, and the people who live here don't like it and talk badly about it, whereas the people who come here, they like it and they talk well of this country, and they support it. So, and the people I support most are the Kurds, the Persians, and then the Indians, of course, because I have connections to India and the family there. So I find that these immigrant groups are more supportive of my position as a Swedish Democrat than the Swedes. Especially Iranians. Because they have also suffered from Islam to destroy their own Zoroastrian religion. They have suffered from the Ottoman Empire, and it's the Iranians, or Persians usually we call them, they are very proud of the country, of the culture.
They're one of the most ancient peoples who are still around.
And when they see all the streets are welcoming all the Muslims from the Middle East, some of the Iranians I talk with, they said, we lost to Islam 1400 years ago when they came to Persia and destroyed our civilization. We don't want this to happen to Europe again. This happened in Persia in the 7th and 8th century. I do think that we had oppression of females. I do think so.
Okay.
Yes. But that was the normal state of life in almost all cultures.
Yes.
So in that sense, Sweden was an exception. We had the right of women to vote in 1921.
Yes. Well, when I say that, I mean yes, always in consideration of the time, but the kind of even in the worst situation that women have in Europe, it wasn't like in Islam or.
No, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. No. If you compare the Muslim and also the Hindu tradition called purda, which means that you are locked into a house. We've never had that.
Yeah.
And as you say, the farmers' wives were very independent and strong. So, and we also had some strong queens through the time. But you see, what happened in the 1980s is that there was what you call a radical form of feminism that doesn't appreciate the gender differences. And you can see there are two streams in feminism. One is against or doesn't want to talk or support the gender differences, whereas the other one wants to and say that we are women and we want special, or we want to be women first and to have all the rights. Whereas the first kind of so-called radical feminists, they say we are equal, which means that there are no differences really between men and women. So, and these people are now dominating the debate. If you look at people who are biologists or genetic experts or doctors, and they know that there are lots of differences between men and women, psychologically, medically, anatomically, all the ways that we are two complementary genders. But that kind of discussion and research hasn't been not even tolerated in Sweden. So what we have now is a very bland kind of feminism that says that everyone is equal and that boys should play with dolls and girls should play with cars and all sorts of forcing down the other sex culture on the sex that doesn't use it, for instance.
Yeah, and this is what this is the question. Why are they doing this? Because it's ideology, as you said. Well, you have given the examples from the sciences, the natural sciences. And there's a very interesting Norwegian documentary about
I know that. Jan is called.
Yes.
It was an excellent documentary. And actually, I think it's an English scientist in that documentary. She says it would be, even if you take it from a religious perspective or a natural evolutionary perspective, it would have been stupid to consider that the genders do not have differences psychologically and in terms of behaviorally when they do have differences on the body structure as well. But so we see that ideology, political ideology comes first to science, so it's being enforced. Why?
It's like Makarenko had what's it called? The Lysenko, the Soviet geneticist, Lysenko, he wanted to prove things where the ideology said one thing and science the other. Well, in Sweden, I think this is a part of the politically correctness that you enforce this kind of feminism because it gives power to the people who support political correctness, and it's also used in almost repressive or what you call mafia kind of structure where you ask companies and institutions to become what you call gender certified. So you have a delegation from a kind of gender expertise who come and values your institution or your company every third year, and then you pay them a fee. And if you don't do that, you could be have a rumor that you are against gender justice. So this kind of gender certification is the same thing as a mafia family who comes to visit your shop the first every month and says, "Hey, Lambros, now you give me the money, I protect you." And this is
I think it's a good,
Yes.
very good example. It is not even a hard example. It's a mild example.
It's a mild, but it happens like this. And in Sweden, we have authorities who feel obliged that they have the gender expertise come and look whether the papers are written in this and that way. And so it becomes a religion. And some of the people who analyze it says that since Sweden has lost its Christian religion, its political correctness, feminism, anti-racism, and all this anti-Ziganism, anti-homophobia, and anti-Islamophobia, and all this political correctness is a new kind of religion because it's not supported by reason, science, or experience.
But do you think there is a reason why they insist on this kind of unnatural approaches to things?
Well, if the politically correct culture must win, they must win over science and biology.
Yeah, but
and they
what is
well,
their target?
the target is the same as they had in the Soviet Union, to create a new man. That is acultural, ahistorical, abiological, and if you are acultural, ahistorical, abiological, you can be manipulated. So it's a power strategy to influence people's minds and saying you have no culture, you have no biology, you have no history. We will help you, we will feed you, we will take care of you, and that's part of the welfare totalitarianism we have in Sweden, which is a soft totalitarianism.
Yes.
So the state,
soft on the surface.
the state can take care of you and satisfy all your needs, and knows your needs better than you know yourself. So Polito Lambros, now you have a bad idea about yourself. Now we can help you, the state psychologists, to help you find yourself beyond your history, your culture, and biology.